Hello, and welcome to MIPIM Connect as part of MIPIM 2020, which of course we're bringing to you in a virtual format. The theme of MIPIM this year is embracing the change, and I think this is the only theme that can make sense. But if we're going to embrace the change, we need to first understand the change. And so all of the content that you're seeing for this year's MIPIM is around the topic of what does the change look like? How is the post-COVID world impacting real estate, the way we work, and indeed the way we live? And we're bringing together experts to help break it down for us, to help talk to us about what this change looks like, what is the post-COVID world going to be made of, and therefore, how can we adapt to it and be ready for these changes? As part of our expert series on investment, I'm really delighted to have with me here Clyde Holland, who is CEO and chairman of the Holland Partner Group, masses of experience working on quite large projects in the Western United States, but has, of course, as well a global view that he's able to bring. And Clyde's going to be telling us a little bit about how he sees the post world in terms of real estate, the future of cities, and the world of work. So we're going to have a keynote talk from Clyde just now, and he'll be able to tell you a little more about what he does and therefore the experience that he brings to bear here. And then I'm going to follow up and pick on him maybe with a few questions afterwards. So first of all, Clyde, a big welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. And tell us a little bit first about who you are, what you do, and more importantly, how you see the world as it is now.
Courtney, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And just a minute, with respect to the Holland Partner Group, we are focused on really looking at the innovation centers in the Western U.S. and within those innovation centers, really looking for the areas where we can add key elements of housing that will support the growth that we're seeing in each of these cities. And that's really the central point, which is where we have remained invested, which is looking at the cities through, the elements of critical mass, the creative class, education, and research, and availability of capital. And so as we look at these innovation centers and as we look at where we have viewed them over the past several decades, today we will step back and really look at that in the post-COVID deal. All of us were, excited about 2020 and the year that was going to be just a great year for real estate and for the economy. As everyone knows, toward the end of the first quarter, we were in a place where the economic activity in the United States hadn't really been this good in several decades. With COVID hitting, I know in our company, we went to, in the first week of March, I've been working on business continuity plans for 30 years, and this is the first time we actually had to initiate it. And, in the first week of March, over a week period, we went from having 175 people in headquarters to having 170 in a virtual format and 5 manning computer banks and mail and all of the basics from that standpoint. But as we look at COVID and all of the companies that had to do those, the first thing that I would tell you is technology has been accelerated. The trends that were in place pre-COVID have really been just super accelerated as they move forward. For instance, retail has been struggling with the rise of e-commerce. In the COVID environment, where effectively everybody was in a shelter-in-place order, Amazon and Amazon delivery, Netflix in terms of delivering of entertainment and concept, e-commerce across the entire platform has just significantly accelerated. And you've seen even in today in a post-COVID environment, as of yesterday, the NASDAQ was actually up for the year about 10% before the most recent, profit-taking adjustments, et cetera. And with that, what you have to do is step back and look at, in those innovation centers, logistics is going to be a significant place of investment. Data centers, last mile delivery, and all the technologies regarding touchless delivery, whether that's grocery shopping or walking your dog and all of the different things as it relates to meals, how Grubhub and Uber Eats and all of those things are really adjusting to this post-COVID environment. So the first theme would really be technology and the acceleration of those trends. We talked about the innovation centers, and the innovation centers are capturing and have captured a disproportionate amount of the capital, the critical mass. And what we see in the US, we have a dozen innovation centers. What we're seeing is that the education institutions in the East and the older established innovation centers are losing creative class to the West, where the last updates, the cutting edge of e-commerce, the cutting edge of the different things that are being launched by the various companies, the growth is really happening. With this COVID deal, work from home is something that, many companies have said, I need the people to come to work and be here, and we need to be watch them and, look at what's happening in a traditional office environment. With COVID, what we're seeing is the work from home is actually dramatically more productive in certain aspects. There are challenges when you don't have your team together for collaboration, for the creative content, for much of the team building and culture. Those are still things that I feel like over time are going to be best instituted in a shared work environment. But for a lot of our team members, the work from home environment, particularly if you're a family with young children or you deal with childcare, is a very significantly more efficient format. And where there are cities with long commutes, being able to eliminate the commute is a very big deal. And so what we see is a portion of the workforce. We're estimating 5 to 10% of the workforce over the next year to 2 years probably will move to a work from home format that will be permanent. And we think that it's a part of what's going to add to the resiliency of what's happening. I'll give you an example. One of our innovation centers, Denver, is just being inundated with leasing from a virtual standpoint from both coasts, heavily from New York as well, but also some for the West Coast because its airport is central. You can get from DIA anywhere in the US in 2.5 or 3 hours. It's got an amazing lifestyle, 300 days of sunshine. It's relatively affordable. And so cities like that, like Denver and what's happening, are going to take a disproportionate amount of the work from home embracement, if you will, from that standpoint. Another key theme that we're really watching and following is supply chain. The different companies and what they're relying on in order for their manufacturing processes to proceed efficiently, timely, and without disruption. And what we're finding is that we believe we will see increasing levels of onshoring of the supply chain in the United States, because the reality is it's not necessarily the lowest possible cost for the supply chain. It's the certainty and the quality of the supply chain and the ability for the supply chain to scale and feed businesses that are growing, that are moving forward from that standpoint. And another main theme that is really coming to the forefront is sustainability. What does it take for these cities to truly be sustainable in a post-COVID world? And I would add the word resilient. And we have all been faced with the challenges and looking at the different things. So as cities demonstrate their sustainability and as they demonstrate their resilience, the investment in those cities are going to also see increases from that standpoint. Because as companies look forward, that accessing the creative class and in the ability to carry your business forward in ways that give you a competitive advantage in terms of access to talent and the cost of that talent, we're going to see some what we think are really exciting times. And I would also say, as we emerge from the COVID challenges, we're all going to emerge stronger. I believe that the communication links, as we look at what's working in one part of the world, will be shared across the board to others. And so we really see this tying together of the leaders and the thought leaders so that all the cities can benefit, that we can determine what's really working and all work together to reinforce those things and really emerge stronger. So I really want to thank you for the ability to share these thoughts. And Courtney, I'm available for questions and in terms of follow-up.
Great. It's really interesting to hear your vision for where things are going. And talk a little bit about maybe social responsibility. And, when we think about placemaking and the post-COVID environment and how we design cities, what is the real estate industry's responsibility for and commitment to placemaking in making cities both sustainable and livable and built for the future?
Well, one of the things that I believe is that when you look at the elements that are working and you look at the transit-oriented developments that have been done in the West, also in London, for instance, the King's Cross Road, it's the very best transit-oriented development that we've seen in the UK from that standpoint. When you look at that and you start breaking down the pieces, affordable housing is at the forefront of being able to be sustainable and to be socially equitable. When you take housing and you take the housing programs and you put them into a location that's walkable to transit, you do a couple of things. One, you eliminate at least one car from the family unit or from a couple. And so you only need one car as opposed to two to try to get to work. Because in the family, the second car is really only there to be able to transport you. But you're also giving that family unit access to the very best job markets because now you're connecting. You're connecting where they live, where their family is, what's right for them in a consistent, thoughtful way where they're not going to get jammed up in a traffic jam. And today it could take 45 minutes and tomorrow it could take an hour and 15 minutes. So you're constantly struggling with the getting to and from work. And so one of the things that we are really focused on is how to put density and this placemaking in and around the public investment in transit so that we can give families with limited income access to the very best job markets and to a home that they can actually afford.
And I guess related to that is you spoke a little bit about how if we're working from home, the cities that are, I guess, geared up on a technology front, it seems that technology will be even more important and IT connectivity. And some cities are better geared up for that than others. And also some households are better geared up for that than others. Are you worried about a digital divide? And if so, how do we bridge it?
Well, I can tell you, I'm not an early adapter, and I'm definitely not a digital native. And I struggle with trying to keep up with the millennials and the things that they
Same.
seem to have as nuances. And I've got two boys. One is an early adapter and one's a digital native. And what I would say is, as we are introducing in the education world an ability for people to have access to the best technology and talent, it's intuitive. This next generation is really coming into its own in looking at the social media and utilizing social media to really be a part of the decision making of whether they're going to go to a restaurant or rent an apartment, or the decisions that they're going to make are being made in a socially conversant way utilizing technology. Yes, the digital divide is a challenge, and cities who've invested in the high-speed fiber and the ability for businesses to run on strong backbones are going to see an increased level of technological investment and the ability to really to be thoughtful and to thrive in a growing environment. I would also say that technologically, the advances that are being made in wireless delivery of high speed is even as exciting as what was happening when we all thought we had to be on fiber. And so I see not the ability for many cities who've made infrastructure investments to do well, but also the abilities for cities who have yet to make those investments to be able to catch up quickly because the technology continues to improve. And so we really see this as a platform, and bringing the best thought process at the public level to embrace change as opposed to resist change, we think is one of the things that's going to really separate cities with their growth and the opportunity for investors to make solid investments. And really meeting multiple needs like transportation, utilizing more public transportation and get cars off the road, reduce our carbon footprint, et cetera. All of those kinds of policies that are now coming out of the best and most successful cities are really available to everyone to embrace.
And all of that really requires a joined up approach between public and private sector, between urban planners, and investors? Is it time to reconsider the relationships between the public and private realm? Have we joined the dots as well as we should have at this point?
I would tell you that that is one of the areas of breakthrough. Shea Moretti did a groundbreaking study in the United States, and they found that if the 12 cities with the highest barriers would reduce those barriers to average, that we'd see a $2 trillion stimulus in the US economy by enabling housing to be built in the cities that are actually necessary, as opposed to resisting that. And so absolutely there's a need and a necessity for the greater public policy to not allow individual cities to override and to say, bring your jobs, bring your retail sales tax, but we don't want your housing. And being able to break through some of those challenges will give all cities an opportunity to really meet the needs of their citizens across the full income spectrum. And if we do that in a well thought out, coordinated, planned way, everybody can win. And by streamlining the different elements, we also can preserve as much of what made each city great as possible. I mean, it's really about 5% of the land area in and around transit in the walkable urban core, where 90% of the opportunity is to add housing that's affordable, convenient, and accessible. And that's really our focus, is preserve the 95%, great, but enable and really take the technology around planning and open it up so that it's prescriptive and not taking 10 years to do an EIR study and appeals and all of the different things that happen in some of these really, high barrier cities. So you're right on in terms of looking at areas and ways that we could really change the built environment quickly.
And one thing that strikes me, you're working obviously in the US, I come from the US, is not every city there is really geared up for public transportation or even has much of it at all. There's still a bit of a cultural issue in the US around attachment to cars. So how do you sort of carry out this kind of vision and this ethos while rubbing up against an attachment to cars, or even the American way of building cities that are actually so spread out that you almost need a car to navigate?
Courtney, you raised some really important points. And what I would say is just look at Dallas. Dallas, the urban, the West End, the Froggy Bottom, the millennials are transforming those areas into the cool, hip places that they want to be. And being willing to listen and being willing to look at the ability to densify those areas and add housing and social and all of the different things that make those areas and parts of town so exciting. Elements of Austin, same drill from that standpoint. And I think about Seattle and the placemaking of South Lake Union, and now in Bellevue in the Bell Red corridor. Those kinds of areas, if planned well and delivered prescriptively, enabling the industry to add its best technology, will really start to transform the conversation, because that investment is valuable to the city. The long-term property tax and support of the city programs will be significantly improved with more investment. And so it's really a self-reinforcing element. In the groundbreaking underproduction report for housing that Up for Growth did, they measured it. And in the US, as of the end of 2015, we had underproduced since 2000 the amount of housing by 7.4 million units. Half of that was in California. And we were working with Fiona Ma, who's the treasurer for the state of California. And effectively, California's tax in not building the housing is $20 billion a year in lost property tax revenue. If we just build those 3.4 million units in the places that are necessary within the Golden State, the revenue flow without increasing taxes to the populace would be approximately $20 billion a year. And so we're really starting to see everyone recognize all of the aspects, not just is my home going up in value, and I want to be exclusive as opposed to an inclusive neighborhood. And so those benefits are becoming much more, I think, widespread and understood. We still need to help the political will break down the barriers so that we can have social responsibility and equity and providing the housing that's necessary for all of the workers in any given city.
Thank you very much. Well, I have to say, I shed my car in 2001 and I've never driven since then. So it is possible. There is hope if you can extend that around the world and make these things accessible, then I think we can move that way. One last question while I've got you. I think we're coming to time here. What or where do you see the most currently underrated investment opportunity? If you were to shine a light somewhere that we should be looking and we're not.
You know, what I would tell you is our main focus is residential, placemaking, mixed use. And what I would say is the ability to look at how can we make the delivery of services seamless to our resident, whether it's grocery shopping or dog walking or, you know, the elements that they have or access to quality food in a timely, thoughtful way. With the work from home, you want to get out of your unit and creating places where you can have an on-site chef and you can go and have lunch and be away, but essentially take the elevator up 2 or 3 floors to have those kinds of amenities and those kind of services are really going to set places apart. And I know from my standpoint, I am in many urban environments, and the access to those services and abilities is something that, you know, we really view as a huge positive. At the same time, I'd also tell you that cities like Boise, we have tremendous outside. They have some bus, but they don't have a lot of public transportation, but it's very accessible and the lifestyle associated with that. And I'm a little bit of a car guy. I got a 65 Mustang that I probably will never part with from that standpoint, but not having to rely on the automobile, but to use it to enjoy it and to have those different kinds of lifestyles, I think is really key. But again, giving people the option of what works best for them and their family, that's the main thing from that standpoint. Courtney, thank you very much. And if I can help in any other way, please let me know.
Thank you so much. And I think your point is really that I think it's the flexibility, having the options, and that's really what adds to livability and will support sustainability initiatives.
Sustainability and resilience, as you look at that and you're looking at investing in different cities, really judging the sustainability of the city and the resilience with its complete infrastructure, all of things from governance to education to housing, transportation, placemaking, etc. from that standpoint. And so I thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. You've just heard from Clyde Holland giving his view on the post-COVID world and how that will impact the future of cities and much more. Stay tuned in for MIPIM Connect to see other insights from other experts from around the world. Thank you very much.